pornographic, that is the end of the inquiry, and the forfeiture must follow. Here's the best part. But in Ulysses, in spite of its unusual frankness, I do not detect anywhere the leer of a sensualist. That's a good word, eh? Sensualist? I hold, therefore, that it is not pornographic. And with that, this book opened up the floodgates to both importing of this book. By then, James Joyce was almost a ruined man and quite downtrodden and died shortly thereafter, blah, 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 happens to the best of them. But this stands up as a court case. It says literary works have merit. Now, this also meant that by importing it, by it being legally admissible, it could be produced in the United States, which meant it could be copyrighted within the United States. But there was this whole other gray market of all these other books and all these other copies. So this book really started a lot of the conundrum about the modern intellectual property law, grandfathering, and the international laws. It really sort of forced the United States to kind of come into the modern time. Now, there's one other book I was going to show you. I got a tiny bit out of sequence here. It's just so exciting. It's hard to keep everything all organized in that suitcase. Here's another one that I brought to kind of show the marriage of form and function. In the late 1800s, book binding and book publishing had kind of met that point where it could be done in a mass-produced manner, but they were still doing it old school, and the pictures were still really important. So I brought as an example of that, this is Don Quixote. This is one of, this is considered really the first really modern novel, and this edition here is from 1891. And it's a 4-part series, but it's really cool inside. Hold on, I'll show you. Because what they did is they put all these pictures in. The pages are all hand cut. Can you see from the side there? Right? So each page was lovingly hand cut. This is as old a monk's style as I personally have come across. And considering the book's well, quite old, I should probably be a little bit more gentle. Tyler, give me a hand. Hold up here. Look at the visual aids here that Tyler's going to show you. It has these little nice tissue papers covering these nice etchings within the thing, and it goes throughout the story, which all the text is all hand-laid. You can actually, there's tactility to it. You can rub your hand against the print of it. Yeah. And it has texture, and it's got these beautiful illustrations in it. And this was kind of the marriage, the high point, what I think is of the form and the function. You have this classic piece of literature presented in this beautiful volume that was production made, but still with an artistic flair and a sense of purpose to the book, that the artifact was important, which I'm going to get to that a little bit more. The other thing that was important about Ulysses I was going to mention from a literary standpoint is this really opened up stream of consciousness as a writing style. Stream of consciousness, the first-person narrative, seems pretty natural to us. Live blogging, what's that? Stream of consciousness, yes? Anyone think so? Yeah. Okay. First person using all the old classics. You notice that it's all written in the third person. It really wasn't until the Confessions of St. Augustine and Jean-Jacques Rousseau and some of these guys that they're really talking the first person, like, this is me, not me being someone else, but this is me, damn it. This is me telling everything that's inside of me as myself rather than a character. James Joyce took this a step further, and he put himself into character, but included everything about the day. Usually, we like to include the interesting bits of our lives in our anecdotes, don't we? The high points, the low points. He put in all those points in between. The ones that usually aren't very interesting, yeah, they're all in here. This book, you see this, that's one day in Dublin. So, the funny thing is one day takes you about 3 months to read, but. All right. So, censorship. Censorship is over in America and print is free unless those words, how am I doing for time? How much time do I have? Okay.
I'm going to say about 7 minutes.
What's that?
About 7 minutes.
About 7 minutes?
Could be 10.
How about 20? Okay. But they're turned into a different kind of censorship, economic censorship. You heard about the McCarthy times back there in the 50s in America, where it just became un-American to do things that were un-American. And if you were un-American, well, they were just going to be ostracized and not allowed to be American anymore. Because you've been branded with the un-Americanness. And here's a little something that I came across. It's Vladimir Lenin's remarks about War and Peace, the book there by Leo Tolstoy. And this struck me when I first pulled it off the shelf. It's like, wow, that's remarkable that literature can be so powerful that it causes massive political figures who had a huge impact on the world to feel like they have to do a response, to address the topics raised in, I mean, can you imagine, actually, I guess I suppose you could imagine Barack writing down a little essay about something, Stephen Harper, not so much. Stefan Dion, yeah, he'd write something down, but no one really understand what he was saying. But then the other thing, and War and Peace is a fantastic piece of literature that I always remember Condoleezza Rice did always say in her little sound bites that, oh yeah, she's read War and Peace in original Russian. And I'm like, well, she clearly missed the point of it, so maybe she should go back and read it in English. But the remarkable thing about this book was where it was published. It was published in, remember we used to call Beijing Peking, China. They printed these little bootleg copies of, clandestine copies of Lenin's remarks in China, in English, just to ship there, just to get to America for propaganda purposes. And while, don't worry, I ain't no commie. But I think it's important that things like this are allowed to circulate freely and live in libraries. I really learned the importance of that. I did some time in Utah and in high school, and I went to the same high school for like a year and a half where the Osmonds had gone, right? And it was pretty weird because I grew up in Surrey, and that's what was like really different, right? And I knew there was something really important about literature when in 11th grade, we were like, okay, in English class, in honors English, you can name any book you want to read. So I brought in Catcher in the Rye. And it was like, oh my God. And I had to get a note from my mom, to say that I could read Catcher in the Rye. I was like, wow, literature has the power to freak people out like this. Then when we had to do our little book report, the teacher went up beforehand and said, Dave's read a really controversial book. And then it turns out the teacher had no idea what it was about. And I said, what's this guy? He runs away from school and he kind of sorts his shit out while he's staying at cheap hotels. And she didn't believe me, right? She thought I was like lying about the book. But anyway, continuing on from James Joyce, my next stop in the literary tradition of that I'm going to point out is Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Anyone read this one?
Yes.
Okay. This one's a kind of a neat addition, and I just picked this up. The story about Kerouac writing On the Road was that he wrote it in one big long scroll, right? He was high on Benzedrine the whole time, but that's, he tells about that, he writes about it, and I'm right out to get Benzedrine, and I'm right back, and I'm here typing. But you don't really understand the majesty of his typing work until you see it all in one lump. May I show you? Within this mighty tome, there's not a single paragraph break. There's not a single line break. And they transcribed it verbatim from his original scroll. And the guy was awesome typist. He just rocked the typewriter. But there's not one break in the action here. So I'll spare you from reading a paragraph because it would take all day, right? But this was a really critical period because all of a sudden literature and there was this highbrow and high-mindedness about it. It was Dickens and Chaucer and there had been this modernist movement with Joyce and Ezra Pound and D.H. Lawrence and all these writers. But really, this was took it and spun it all out of control, and it was all of a sudden, wow, anyone who has a story can tell should be telling it. So I think this was a critical stop along and a huge inspiration on me. Now, I'm going to have to skip some of this stuff because of the time, but I'm going to give you a quick choice. One, I can give you a list of how to make awesome stuff, or I can show you awesome stuff I have made that has influenced my social media production thing. Preferences? Okay. So, there I was, Guam. I realized that where's my slide? Okay. The form that had been perfected. Case in point, that lovely Don Quixote. That's an awesome form of a thing, right?